all together.
What is going on, everyone? I am Jabby Kuwait, joined by Achara Kirk.
What's up?
We are about to watch Captain Miller, and you're about to see our review to Captain Miller. So I'm just doing my little introduction right now. If you want to watch Captain Miller with us, there is a cut-down version that will be here on YouTube, but if it's not there already, whenever you watch this, it might be 2050 when people are watching this review. Examining the classics from Indian cinema. My head went to a weird place. Anyway, if you want to watch the entire movie with us without any cuts or interruptions, not broken up into parts like it will be here on YouTube, head over to our Patreon page or become a member of this channel. You'll get access to the full uncut reaction that way. You'll just need your own copy of the film, which we are watching through Amazon Prime, so you can open it up side by side with our reaction. We give you a 3, 2, 1 countdown sync, and it's like you're watching it with 2 of your favorite buddies from the internet. If you're already part of our Patreon and memberships, thanks so much for supporting us. If you're part of just the YouTube thing, then make sure to hit the subscribe button, bell icon, all notifications, and vote this up. All right, let's talk about Captain Miller. So we just got done watching Captain Miller, and this is quite an interesting film. I initially thought going into it that this was more of a historical drama of some kind. You know, I didn't know how much of this was based on actual events, actual characters from history, and like how much it was trying to basically just chronicle that. Come to the end of the film, I'm realizing that it's kind of like an RRR in a way, you know, where it's maybe borrowing from historical events and things that have happened, but it's creating its own folktale, its own story.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, which is definitely there in the storytelling of it. Just how the director chose to tell the story with like the different chapters and stuff like that. It felt very epic and very much like this is a tale that we're telling about, you know, the rise of this character, Captain Miller.
Right. I don't know what, I always have to say that, like, I don't know what Indian filmmaker influenced Arun Matheswaran, but I definitely could pick up on American influences, like Nolan definitely with the music, and Tarantino in terms of like the style, and it sort of just, it took me back to the watching of Sisu, you know.
That's exactly what came to mind for me as well, yeah.
Well, Sisu was like, it was taking historical events and making a John Wick out of that, you know, and it's like hyper violent, hyper stylized, the music and everything like that. And so this is definitely along the lines of that, in my opinion. And I definitely got a sense of like Inglourious Bastards with certain music cues while violence was happening. And I'm like, that makes sense. I can see all that.
For me, it felt like a Western, like very, very influenced by like that style of like an old Western, which is also something that comes across a lot in Tarantino's work. Because like, you know, obviously the character of Captain Miller is a dacoit, right?
Yeah.
And so I feel like in Indian cinema, a lot of the time when stories have been told about dacoits, they've usually been more in that like old Western vein.
I felt like there was a scene in here with Captain Miller himself that felt just like the introduction of the bear in Inglourious Bastards, with the music and everything like that right before this person gets killed. I believe it was when Captain Miller tells all the Indian soldiers to go that way right before he murders the 2 white soldiers that were on the ground. It was very much like, you know, the bear coming out and like beating them with the bat.
Right.
That's like the music and everything. It was very similar, which I don't mind. The Inglourious Bastards is a film that so many people love. Anyway, enough about influences. When I watched the trailer, I was a little bit concerned that I would feel potentially exhausted by the film because, I don't know, I forgot exactly what I had said. I just remember a certain feeling when watching the trailer, like it was just like a cacophony of action, right?
Yeah.
Just a lot of action, and I'm not really exactly sure if I'm gonna be able to just be engaged with it from start to finish. In a way, this is a terrible comparison, but in the same way that like 12th Fail had me engaged all the way from start to finish, right?
Very different movies.
A very different film, but I'm just making the point that a film can engage me all the way through and through. I can't think of an action film off the top of my head, but perhaps like Nolan films are action films that keep me engaged all the way through, generally speaking. There are exceptions where it loses me. Yeah, that did definitely happen, where I was feeling exhausted at certain times. You know, like at the 2-hour mark, I was like, this movie's over, right? And they kept going for another 30 minutes or so. However, the acting was strong, especially on Dhanush. The music was fun because it's like music that is familiar to me anyway, because it sounds like stuff I like anyway. Action had its moments, but the cinematography throughout, not all the time, but throughout, it was beautiful cinematography.
Yeah.
And the reason I say not all the time is because there were instances where I don't know if it was Arun Matheswaran or like his B unit or what, like, but the camera was doing crazy stuff sometimes, and the editing was going a little bit nutso sometimes, to the point that it made it hard for me to appreciate stuff. Like, one of my favorite shots in the film was when okay, well, I have to be careful. So I like the film. If you're watching this or like, it's like non-spoiler to spoiler section.
Okay.
I like the film and I recommend it. I'm gonna leave it at that before we transition into spoilers. What's your feeling, your quick take?
Yeah, this was an interesting movie, and I really enjoyed, like you said, the cinematography and the acting, especially from Dhanush.
Yeah.
Very strong.
Okay, so I'm going to shift into spoilers now. Watch the film if you haven't done so already, and then come back to this part. So one of my favorite shots is when his mom passes away, and I actually wanted the beginning of that shot to be even longer. And I wish that the film allowed us, like Tarantino, because you're using that influence anyway, to just let stuff linger a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, because nothing lingers in the film except for that shot. You know, it's like, I wish if it was like, if I had the option to talk, if I had the opportunity to talk to the director in the editing room, let it just be this shot. Don't do anything else. Just let it be this shot, because it was great. Because he allowed it to continue, right? He walks away from camera, and it's a wide. He sees his mom has passed away, and he comes back, and it's just on him walking towards camera moving with him as all the people are walking towards the mom. I thought that was a wonderful shot. Like you said, it demonstrated or illustrated his isolation, how he's feeling. He's not going crazy, but we know exactly how he feels, his sense of loss, his guilt, whatever it is, like all the things he's feeling in that moment, we get it.
And and it's like really symbolic of how he is that lone wolf or the black sheep, you know, where even when he came back to his village after what he had done, they all shunned him.
Right.
They're like, no, you're not welcome here. And that showed that he was already feeling not welcome even before that moment, you know? And so that was really powerful. I thought that, you know, like you, there were so many cool cinematography moments that I thought really told the story very, very well. Like, it was just so beautiful to look at. But there's something, and it's like I can't quite put my finger on it, because it's like I feel like I wanted to really love this movie, but there was something about how it was done, and I don't know how I can say to like improve it or anything, but it's just like it didn't really connect with me emotionally as much as I wanted it to. Like,
it was more focused on the action, that's why.
Yeah, there were definitely moments where I was like, oh, I feel like a sort of connection happening. But then, like you said, a lot of the time it just moved on really quickly from things. And for a movie that cuts so quickly and kind of does try to move things quickly, I felt the same as you, where after a while I was like, oh, we're still going. Like, this runtime is still going. We're still handling the story.
Yeah, I think that it just needed more going on with Dhanush's character, perhaps. It's like I kind of got the overarching point, like, okay, the English are bad, got to get rid of them, and also the oppressors, the Indian oppressors are also bad, got to get rid of those guys.
That was really interesting.
Yeah, I like that idea a lot.
Yeah.
You know, because it's not really talked about, and one of the hardest things to do, I would imagine even more so in India, is to like examine that kind of stuff. Like, it's not just them, there's also us that has a problem just internally that we got to deal with.
And that's also like a really cool thing about the story as well, where, you know, we see examples of various different people within the British Army who are Indians, and also within whatever guard or soldier group that was guarding the royalty, and having them change their minds and be like, you know what, I don't have to stand for this. I can also rebel, which was really powerful.
Maybe I'm overthinking it, but I think it's brave to tell this kind of story and pose that kind of question, because you know, even here in the States, it's hard to, let's use political parties, it's hard to speak against your own political party, because that's your party. You know, you're supposed to stand strong with them and united and defend your team, but like, to root out problems within your own party, it takes bravery, you know? And to pose that kind of question and go, look, you know, yes, the English are bad, but also historically we have our own things that like were oppressing us as well. And that needs to be talked about. I thought that was cool, but it sort of got mixed up and muddied with the crazy action and stuff like that. You know, when I'm watching a Tarantino film, it's more entertainment. It's using history, perhaps it's just a backdrop for the story.
Right.
But at the heart of it, he just wants to entertain you, right? And maybe have some catharsism, like killing Hitler, right?
Yeah.
So there's a cathartic element there. In Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, the cathartic element is that they lived, right? And not got brutally killed, and instead the Manson family, Manson murderers got killed instead. So there's a cathartic element. but the whole point is entertainment. He's not really trying to educate you. Whereas this film was trying to educate you at the same time, and that's really hard to do.
Yeah.
Is to mix like hardcore, fun, over-the-top entertainment with education. You know, like even RRR, I look at as more of just entertainment.
Yeah.
And not historical, like, I'm getting educated right now.
Yeah,
you know?
I feel like RRR was more concerned with like, are you having fun?
Yeah.
Are you connected with the characters? Are you enjoying the relationships and the story?
Yeah.
And are you enjoying this over-the-top action? Because I know what movie this is, you know what movie this is, and we can all have fun.
Exactly.
Whereas this definitely had moments where I was like, whoa, it's getting like, this is heavy.
Yeah.
And then like, oh, I can have fun. Okay, I'm gonna have fun now.
Yeah. The music shifting also, like, it was not consistent in the music choices. Like, you know, they would have the instrumental music, and then it would have stuff that sounds like American scores that I love, and then it would have this lyrical music championing Captain Miller, and that's a big pet peeve of mine.
I know. I noticed it as
Yeah.
well when it came, and that was probably my least favorite music moment, because generally I thought the music choices were pretty awesome
Yeah.
in this movie, but that I was like, oh, I don't want to hear you do a like aggressive rap song about Captain Miller.
Yeah. No, I mean, I enjoyed some of the lyrical music when it sounded like Rob Zombie, but like Indian Rob Zombie. It wasn't specific to him. It was just a feeling. And that might be okay. I might be all right with that. But as soon as you say Captain Miller, I'm just like, okay. It's a bit much now.
But that
you
might
know.
just be like our personal sensibilities. I'm sure there's
Oh, of
many
course.
people who enjoy that, because I noticed that a lot, especially in many of the South movies that I've seen, that this is a thing where, or maybe it's even just Tamil, because I remember them doing that in Leo as well, where they had like an English song kind of talking about like Leo, you know, and it's like,
Yeah,
okay.
I just don't like the mythologizing of a main character while I'm still in the middle of his story.
Right.
It's a little bit irksome for me. You know what I mean? It's like I'm still on this journey with him. Like, allow me to finish that through before you mythologize him.
Right,
you
like
know?
have that happen at the end when
Sure.
we're like, he's a total badass. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. The action itself, the reason why I feel like the reason why you got exhausted is because it was doing a lot of the same moves over and over again. You had the zooming in and out stuff, and it was just like kind of frenetic and nuts, and then you had the explosions with the English soldiers flying towards camera, and it's like
Yeah.
you had that shot at least 20 times. It was doing a lot of the same beats again and again, and it wasn't really treading new ground. It was just like, okay, action. Okay, take a breather, assess, action. You know, and it wasn't really moving the story forward.
I was wondering about those specific moments with the explosions and the British soldiers, like kind of, you know, popping up
Yeah.
and like falling out of frame. There was one move that seemed to be a very popular one, which was like they'd come up and it was almost like they cartwheeled
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
And that I noticed that like twice in a row at one point, and I was like, did they reuse the same shot and just like, okay, we'll just
Yeah, potentially.
reuse that,
It might also just be falling in love with a specific thing,
like
right?
like a movement.
Like a movement, because okay, by the time this review drops, Love Punch Kill's out, okay?
Yeah.
And even in watching Love Punch Kill over and over and over again, there are certain moves I saw myself do, and it's just because that was my instinct on how to handle that moment.
Right.
And I was like, watching it through, once it's all assembled, it's like, why did I do that move so many times? You kind of get irritated with yourself. Well, I do, because I'm a hyper-analytical person, right? And I think about how other people might view it. And so this director or whatever, whoever thought of those things, it's like that's just the instinct that they had for handling that particular moment, and it just ends up looking similar and samey after a while.
Right, especially when you cut it back to
Yes.
back with the exact same move. It's fine if you like, you know, spread it out a little bit and
Yeah.
like maybe 15 minutes later bring it back.
I think that there was a lot of compensating in the film to make things look bigger or more exciting than it was. And that might be a budgetary thing. It just so happens I rewatched something I shot over 10 years ago. Is this little commercial for a company that I don't think any longer exists called Drive Zone. And I needed to shoot a car chase sequence, or not a car chase sequence, but a car sequence where this woman is a bad driver and the teacher's just like losing his mind. And like the way I shot that sequence is exactly how a lot of the car stuff looked in this movie. It's like you're just trying to compensate for the inability to really do exactly what you would want to do. And so what you end up doing is like zooming in and out to create a frenzy, a feeling of kineticism that isn't actually there. The explosions with the soldiers I feel like that's the cheaper way to do it. Like, first off, that's CG explosions. You just
Yeah.
have stunt people flying.
Yeah.
And then you're putting fire behind it. Fire is difficult.
Yes.
Fire is a very difficult effect to do, and they did fire a lot in this movie. And I'm like, okay, if you're that close to the fire.
Yeah, there was just that one point where they were like against the wall of fire.
Yeah.
And I really had to suspend my disbelief
Yeah.
really hard because I'm like, if you were standing that close to the fire, like, goodbye eyebrows. You'd be really
Right.
hot.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
you know?
Yeah. No, there's what I always think of for some silly reason is like the Waterworld stunt show at Universal Studios, and there's always this moment that happens where this thing explodes, and it's at least 50 feet away from me.
It's hot.
But I feel so hot.
Yeah.
Every time that happens, and I'm like, it's way over there, and I feel hot because of that in my mind, which is an experience most people, I guess, don't have. It's like it seems so unrealistic that they're just having a conversation next to this blaze of fire.
Although, to be fair, it could also be a forced perspective type thing that they're kind of going for. Which is like,
Maybe.
it's actually really far away, but because of just how it fills up the entire frame, it looks like it's really close.
But I think that our brains just inherently know what's real and what's not.
Yeah.
When you're seeing fire and how it's interacting with the environment.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's just problematic. And so you want to have actual distance and an understanding of actual distance remote from all that. Because the thing about it is that no, they weren't that far away because Captain Miller kicked some dude into the fire.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Yeah. So that gave us like a sense of this is how close he is. He
Yeah.
was literally able to like front kick that dude.
Yeah, we had context for that. And
Yeah.
so, and at no point is Captain Miller going like this because of his eyes. It's like, fire's uncomfortable to be near.
Yeah.
You know?
The drone shots that they were doing in that car scene when they were going after the statue, they did some really cool things there that helped with making it feel like very kinetic and exciting. So I did appreciate that.
I did like at least half of those. After a while, I think I was like, okay.
Got
Yeah,
it.
yeah. It's like after a while, I was like, I get it. But I did like half of them. I
Yeah.
thought that they were very creative and they were doing things with the drone that I hadn't quite seen before. Like, in particular, the one that comes to mind is when the drone is following the bullets coming at
Yeah.
the characters. It's like, that is an effective way to story tell.
Yes.
You know, because you're giving this sense of danger and urgency. Whereas sometimes it's just cool for the sake of it. And I'm like, as I get older, I get less enthusiastic about that.
Right.
It's like if you do that a couple of times, it's fine. But if it's all the time, it's like, come on, dude.
Yeah,
You know?
I mean, I will say though that I think the director has a very good eye for visual storytelling, like using the medium of cinema, which is, you know, the medium that he's working in, to really tell the story in
Yeah.
an interesting way. Like there were so many cool and interesting shots. Obviously, like he worked with a great cinematographer. For me, I would say this movie is definitely an interesting one with some great performances and beautiful cinematography, but didn't quite like stick the landing for me completely.
But again, Danush was great.
He really was.
When is he not, honestly? But he's so strong as this transformative individual. You know, when you saw him go through all these different moments in his life, you bought him in each of those moments. I wish that they showed the transition even more, though, because they kind of skip forward. He decides, I'm going to enlist in the army. And then, boom, 6-7 months later, whatever, new haircut, new style, and he's in the army. And it's got this sort of a whimsical vibe to the whole thing, right? Without the stillness of Wes Anderson, it felt kind of Wes Anderson.
Right.
You know, because Wes Anderson's often locked off. And the director decided to crop the frame in and bring it a little bit closer to like a traditional 4:3 aspect ratio without going all the way. I guess it was like 16:9 that's what it was. It was 16:9. We jump forward into that. And it's like kind of whimsical and fun, I suppose, to kind of be connected to what the character's experiencing until it gets real.
Yep.
With the killing of the protesters, right? And that's when there's just a crazy shift in the film tonally, which makes sense for his character, is what I mean to say. And so when he's on his own, we cut to him just having long hair. It's like, what? I mean, maybe we didn't need it, but he just seemed like a totally different dude from the guy who was standing before his village trying to get back in and being kicked out, and then when he's up catching up to the dacoits, to the
Yeah, to the gang. Yeah.
yeah, like two totally different people. We missed that. That was like the 4 years later in Castaway.
Yeah, I don't really mind that.
Sometimes I just need one scene or something. Like I don't know. Like
what?
I don't know. I need a montage. That's the time to have a song. Like I need a montage of some kind because like I missed something in there of like what did he do for a while? Like what?
Yeah, see, I don't feel like I need that. As far as the story goes, and him becoming the man that he becomes by the end of the movie, I don't feel like whatever he was doing during that time was that important for his character growth and development.
I think that's a lost opportunity. I disagree strongly. Like we should have had a scene of him hunting a bear or something and eating, and then having a moment of him sitting and eating and like thinking about that girl that he saved and wishing he could go back and talk to her again, but he can't for reasons. Like, like there's a lot of like silent stuff that you can do that's fascinating to watch. The first 17 minutes of There Will Be Blood had no dialogue, and it was fascinating to watch. You can have moments that are just no dialogue and maybe even no music, and you're just watching the character be.
Okay, but how is that important to the story as a whole? If you're talking about the movie dragging...
Because he learned how to survive, right, on his own. Without any help, solo.
Did you ever doubt that this man could not survive on his own? Did you ever think that
First he's with his village, then he's with the military, and then he's by himself, and then he's with the gang. We missed this. We missed the part where he's by himself completely.
Right, but then they show it later how he is like the lone wolf, and so that totally makes sense.
Okay, well, I agree to disagree, Shara.
Okay, we agree to disagree.
I'm just saying, like, there's something there. That's a chapter of his life that we could have used for maybe 2 minutes.
Okay, fine. I'll take 2 minutes. I'll take 2 minutes.
And gotten something, like, just him, like, still thinking about the girl. That's human, and that connects me to his character, or his mom, or his brother. In that moment, by himself. What do you do but when you have idle time? Like so much idle time and no one to talk at you, where your mind just goes to places and often dark places.
I'll take a 2 minute like short montage. Sure, I didn't need an entire extra 15 minutes of movie showing us what Dhanush did, but when he was hanging out by himself.
I can almost guarantee you, if they gave us like, let's say, we'll split the difference and say 5 minutes, right? If they gave us 5 more minutes of movie there, it would have felt a little bit shorter of a film overall.
Maybe.
Yeah.
And maybe it would have given like a little bit more of that emotional connect that
that's
I
what
wanted.
I'm saying. Yeah, thank you. That's what I'm driving at.
I just don't need him to be thinking about the girl. It's like, okay, whatever. But I see what you're saying. But going back to Dhanush, I think as well, like he is such a great actor that while he didn't really have a lot of lines in the movie, he's so good at just like being the character, living in those moments, and also watching him at the different stages of his life where he's playing like different ages and like different aspects of this one character. He does them so well that it truly feels transformative every time he like pops up on the screen as like a new version of himself.
I'm doubling back now to what we were just talking about with the emotional connection. There's a lot of violence in the film, and it's like the movie didn't quite make up its mind what kind of film it was trying to be. Is it an emotional journey or is it just a cool action film?
Yeah.
There's a way to do both, I suppose. I just didn't get both. It felt like two different films sometimes. And so what would have been helpful is a simple thing where like you saw him go crazy, like firing off multiple times in the film, just firing off his gun, right?
Yeah.
And the movie's so loud sometimes. Like if you just chose an opportunity, just one, to cut the sound out, and you see him firing and you're close up on his face, and what is he thinking about? His dead brother, his dead mom, whatever.
All those people that he killed. I mean, even in that moment where like they are shooting all of those innocent protesters, you could have cut the sound there. I don't know.
That's true too.
Would that have worked?
No, that would have been very effective. But I'm talking about when he's well into the Captain Miller
era
mythological character.
Yes.
When he's killing these soldiers, these British people or whoever, and you just go inside his head for just a moment. You don't need to like have a whole audible flashback. It could just be the sound of the gun firing, and you just see what's in his mind. You don't actually have the audio of what's in his mind. You just see it. Like for a fleeting moment, the face of his mom smiling, the face of his brother and him hugging, whatever. It'll f you up, right? And then you cut back to the action. I think that's super effective, and that'll root you back in the character, what's going on, and it won't feel like a 4-hour film that's only 2.5 hours. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like I think that this film really needed moments like that, and we just didn't have it for some reason. I think that while it's cliche, and the film definitely avoids it, we needed a love story in here. We didn't get one. And it's like, okay, fine. You didn't follow the cliche route. I get you.
That's okay.
Respect to you. But because of that, the movie also felt longer. It's like, what is he fighting for? You know what I mean? What is he sacrificing?
Like what is he sacrificing? If not a romance, like we need something. We need a stronger relationship with his brother, apart from being like, he's my brother. Because they weren't close.
Right. And that was another thing. He sees his brother. There's no anger. There's no hug. There's no, thank God you're alive, but you're a bastard. Like, nothing. There was just
There's no like, I love you, really.
Yeah, nothing was addressed. Nothing. And like, I so thought this film was gonna go somewhere interesting with that. Like, the whole reason I'm on this path is because I thought you were dead.
Yeah.
Like,
it kind of broke my brain a little bit when that reveal happened, because I was like, wait, what? So what was the purpose of that old man not telling him, or like delivering a lie?
That's a great question. See, I thought we were gonna get a third villain, which is
the guy with the eye thought too.
No, the third villain. The third villain being this is, for lack of a better word, propaganda. You know, like being roped into this fight he never wanted to be part of. It's like, we thought the two villains were just the oppressors and the English. But the third villain can still be the lies that he was told.
Yeah.
So to speak. You know what I mean? I'm not articulating it best, but you see what I'm driving at?
I do see what you're driving at, yeah.
It's like, dude, like, I never wanted this, and I only did this because I had so much anger and revenge in my heart that I was filled with because of you, because I thought I killed you, you know? Like,
yeah, I think also I got so frustrated at points, which I think is a good thing, right?
Yeah.
It was one of those moments where I was feeling emotionally connected, because I was just getting frustrated at how everyone was treating Captain Miller, and how, you know, on the one hand, everyone's like, oh no, you're not welcome in our village and we don't want you anymore and blah, 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 blah. But then as soon as it's like in their interest to have him because he has an undeniable set of skills that they need, they're all like, oh yeah, you know, we want you, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I want him to like make some decisions and, you know, do things that he wants to do. But I guess ultimately he did, right? Because he wouldn't have done anything that he didn't want to do.
What's interesting is where, like, what is helpful to have inconsistent versus consistent. It's like, because the action was consistently the same, it got a little stale. Because the music was inconsistent, it was confusing, right? Because like, what are you doing? I forgot where I was going with that, so I'm just gonna shut up now.
Because you were saying how, like, it's funny what things we choose, how I think what you're trying to say is, like, it's funny how sometimes the things that we choose to keep consistent or inconsistent can kind of maybe not work in the way that we were expecting.
Yeah, because I think that the director wanted to have these crazy over-the-top action moments. It's like, okay, fine, but you can't have all of them play that way. Some of them have to be different. Some of them, sometimes, like, you have to, like, okay, for instance, he chose a moment where the camera was inside the car that was flipped, and it was the spider cracks in the glass.
Yeah, that was a cool shot.
It was beautiful. I felt like that was straight out of the Batman, but it was played differently here, so I liked it a lot, and I appreciated it very, very much. And you just see, like, Captain Miller walking away. It's like, and through the cracks, it gives a feeling, and I don't exactly know what that feeling is, but it's great.
Yeah.
And that was a choice. It's like, cool. Vary it up more like that. You know, like, you had a moment where it was stillness. I think that it was just not enough stillness was in the film. It was like he had 2 moments of stillness, and most of it was just like crazy and lots of editing. You know what I mean?
Right.
I just needed more stillness and vary it up that way. Be less consistent in that area. You know, or consistently vary it more. But again, Danusia's acting, strong. Music choices, strong. Except for the rap about Captain Miller. And the chapter moments I thought were interesting.
Visually.
Yeah, I almost felt tears when the mom passed away.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of interesting gems in the film, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah, and there were definitely emotional moments that, like, nearly got me.
Yeah.
But, like, didn't quite.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Anyways, you guys, thanks so much for hanging with us. I'm Jabby Coy. This is
Achara Kirk.
Peace out.